What's up, everybody? Mike Walsh here. So today I want to talk about Sean O'Malley and the walk-off KO, because Sean O'Malley got such a KO against Zahabi at the UFC Freedom 250 card, and it was a little controversial. The stoppage was thought to be by a lot of people early, and Zahabi included, and I'll get into that. But I'm making this video because he did a podcast after the fact, or released a video on his channel, whatever it was, where he basically said that Ilia Topuria should have tried the same thing against Justin Gaethje. He said that if Ilia had gotten that body shot and had dropped Gaethje in the second round like he had done, if he had just stepped back and celebrated as if he had won, then Sean thought the ref would have called it. And he made the argument that Gaethje being dropped by a body shot specifically, not by a headshot, your body is seizing up. If you've never eaten a flush liver shot and been dropped by it, it's very painful for one, but yes, it's very hard to control your body. You do kind of coil into a ball. Your muscles are contracting in defense. And yeah, it might have been hard for Justin to just rise to his feet very quickly in that moment. And so Sean was saying that Ilia should have just sold it. He should have just acted like he won, and the ref would have called it, and it would have been a TKO win. And people in response were naturally critical of Sean and saying, like, oh, of course you say that. You got this BS stoppage against Zahabi. Like, you got away with one because you yourself went for that kind of walk-away celebration, and this is BS. That's what people are saying afterwards. And I want to get into it because I think this is an interesting topic. Sean O'Malley, yes, he did the walk-away KO. He hurt Zahabi, and then he dropped him with a follow-up punch. And Zahabi did fall quite limp to the floor. And yes, Sean immediately turned away and did the salute to the troops and all that crap. And the referee stepped in, and Zahabi started rising in protest, although you see that he does immediately fall over as he's rising. So he was quite hurt. If you only saw him rising, you might be misled into thinking he wasn't as hurt as he truly was. But, he wasn't unconscious as Sean was walking away and as the fight was called. And Zahabi is a tough dude. He's a bit of a dog. He got hurt very badly against Jose Aldo, and yet he survived that fight, and not only survived it, but went on to win the decision. I'm not betting on that happening against O'Malley, but there is an argument that, if O'Malley hadn't sold the finish to the referee, that the fight would not have ended there. Now, conversely, again, Zahabi was quite hurt, and O'Malley at present is the much greater finishing threat than is Jose Aldo. I do think the most likely reality is that Zahabi was saved additional damage and a more brutal finish by the fact that Sean O'Malley chose to emote rather than chase the ground and pound. But we never know. We'll never know, and Zahabi can always claim that. So it's an interesting topic, and I think this is a part of the sport. Okay, selling things is part of the sport. Not just in knockouts, but in the fights themselves. I'm going to get into it and kind of give some examples, but the walk-off KO has always been around, and of course, Mark Hunt is probably the most famous guy for the walk-off KO. And he's made it work, and sometimes he's sold it himself, and sometimes he's failed to sell it. So, for example, I think the first fight where he actually did the walk-off KO was against Chris Tucker, which was his first win in the UFC. Because Mark Hunt, for those of you who don't know, he was a K1 kickboxer. He debuted in Pride FC. He lost his debut, I want to say, against Yoshida, and then he won several fights. He won some split decisions over Crow Cop and Wanderlei Silva. He lost to Barnett, lost to Fedor. Went on a big losing streak outside of the UFC, outside of Pride and outside of the UFC, and then in his UFC debut. So he lost to Overeem, he lost to Mousasi, he lost to Melvin Manhoef, comes to the UFC and loses to Sean McCorkle. And the UFC wanted to just buy out his contract. They were like, dude, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to fight here. We kind of got you when we bought Pride, but we'll just pay out your contract so you don't fight. And Mark Hunt denied that and said, no, I want to fight. And, it's back when the UFC kind of had standards as far as who they let into the promotion, and they weren't trying to fill a million cards with nobodies. But, no offense to anyone. No offense to anyone without a Wikipedia page that's found your way into the UFC. God love you. Good luck. But in any case, the UFC used to have higher standards. And, yeah, Mark Hunt loses his debut, but then he wins his next fight against Chris Tucker, and he does the walk-away KO. Hilariously, I think it's his very next fight where he tries it at like multiple times and fails. So he fights Ben Rothwell, and it's at altitude. They're in Colorado or wherever, and it's a fight or it's a card where everyone's getting tired, and this fight is no exception. These two big, kind of chubby heavyweights, and Ben Rothwell is a monstrously durable human being. That's why it is so impressive that, like, Andrei Arlovsky knocked out Ben Rothwell and Roy Nelson and got them both in their primes. Andrei Arlovsky had a titanic punch, okay? But that aside, Mark Hunt was unable to finish Ben Rothwell. He won the fight. He won it by unanimous decision. But there's multiple points where he lands like a flush uppercut and goes to walk away. Going for it, he's hoping that it will slump him and that he can time the walk away so that the ref will just run in and wave it off. But in each case, he fails to actually drop Ben Rothwell, and it's pretty funny. It kind of looks embarrassing that he's going for that walk away. Now, I've also seen Mark Hunt pull off the walk away and have it be a little questionable. So Frank Mir got dropped by a punch, and Mark Hunt did the walk away, and the ref stepped in. And Frank Mir didn't really protest because he was really hurt, but he wasn't unconscious. I think it's good for him that Mark Hunt walked away because Mir has this sort of dazed look in his eyes, this sort of like, holy fuck, what just hit me kind of look in his eyes. He doesn't look like eager to fight. So again, I think it was good for him, but it is very analogous to the Sean O'Malley walkaway KO. It is very much a thing where it's like, well, that guy wasn't really out, and you kind of forced the finish, or you lured the ref into giving you a finish, and maybe that guy would have survived, or maybe if Mark Hunt had to do follow-up ground and pound, Frank Mir would have submitted him. Like, you never know. So, I mean, Frank Mir was pretty badly fucking hurt by Nogueira on the feet in their rematch. Nogueira goes for a guillotine on a very rocked Frank Mir, and Frank Mir ends up reversing him and Kimura-ing him. So it could have happened to Mark Hunt. Thankfully, it didn't. I'm a massive Mark Hunt fan, and I was very happy to see him knock Frank Mir out or TKO him. But yeah, that's selling the walkaway KO. And that is not the only way in which people sell things in fights. So like a lot of close decisions are won because people are selling something. So Dominic Cruz won a controversial split decision over TJ Dillashaw in his comeback where he won back the title. Great fight. I was very happy Cruz won, but a lot of people didn't agree with the scoring. But a lot of people kind of analysts at the time realized that Cruz's fighting style can win over judges. Like Cruz, he's flashy, he's got the footwork, he's dodging stuff. It's more colorful when he is slipping punches or when he times a takedown. It just looks a little more designed than when other people have success against him. And even though defense is not scored in MMA, defense is sort of its own reward, as they say. It's not something that you get points for. Whereas in boxing, like, you do get points for defense. And so what that means is, like, in a boxing match, if you throw like a 1-2-3 at someone and they slip, roll really gracefully and you don't touch them, that does score for them. It's not a wash. It doesn't score for you because you're being aggressive. Like, it scores for them because they showed better craft by using their defense to effortlessly and gracefully avoid all those punches. MMA doesn't work that way. If you do that in MMA, that's not supposed to score for you. The defense is its own reward. Your reward for having achieved that is just not getting punched in the fucking face. However, even though that's not how it's supposed to be scored, human psychology is a real thing. And if you can make it appear like you're winning, if you can have an energy and a sort of way about you and a confidence that makes it seem like you're winning, makes it seem like you know that you're winning and that you know what's happening in this fight. And if you're fighting in a way that makes it seem like you are having the fight you want and that the other guy is being forced to have that fight, that the other guy is frustrated, that the other guy is not having things go the way he wants, that's a real thing, and that will win people over. That's why I'm more okay with grappling being scored highly than a lot of people are. Because, of course, there's been updates to the judging criteria that really tried to stamp this down, really tried to like kind of rule out lay and pray and say like, no, if you just like take someone down and hold them down in half guard, that counts for barely anything. And if they land a couple more jabs than you, they should like win that round. But I resist that a bit. Don't get me wrong. I came up watching Pride. I'm in favor of damage and aggression and stuff that threatens the finish of a fight being prioritized. And you got some interesting decisions in Pride back in the day, like Nogueira beats Rico Rodriguez, a former UFC heavyweight champion, where Rodriguez is like, if I recall correctly, he goes the distance. Rodriguez is taking Nogueira down and like holding him down in guard for most of the fight, but not getting a lot done with it. And Nogueira does have some relatively close like triangle attempts and stuff like that. So he wins because he's the one who's like trying to finish the fight. But for a lot of people, that was kind of a BS decision, or at least a lot of people who were used to scoring it in more of a UFC unified rules context and not the way that Pride scored things. So I came up watching Pride, so I'm like cool with that side of things. But at the same time, if you take someone down and just hold them in guard or hold them in half guard, they don't want to be there. Like, you're having the fight you want and they're not having the fight they want. And that, to me, that counts for something. And again, that's, even if the criteria doesn't officially say that, like, judges are human beings. And it's like the joke in powerlifting. So in powerlifting, there's rules for what counts as a good lift. Meaning if I show up at a powerlifting meet and I bench press 400 pounds, like, there are rules about how that bench press needs to be performed to count. You know, I need to touch my chest and I need to listen to the cues of when I'm supposed to lower and raise it. And there's other shit that goes into it. But like, you need to use correct form. I can't be like lowering it halfway and then lifting my ass off the bench and like, you know, body Englishing it up to lockout. I can't do that. I will fail. But the way it's judged is there's 3 judges, and a white light means you pass and a red light means you fail, and you just need 2 white lights. And that's like a joke amongst powerlifters, is they say, all I need is 2 white lights, you know, so that it just needs to be good enough. And there's been similar jokes about fighters who are very good at consistently winning split decisions. So like, I remember someone saying this about Rafael Assunção back in the day, who was one of the top bantamweights during the like Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw era. And he never won a belt or never even fought for it, but he was one of the top dudes. And he won a lot of split decisions. And someone said, like, yeah, he knows how to do enough to win 2 rounds on 2 of the judges' scorecards. And if you do that, you will win, right? That's all you need to do. Now, since it is subjective, you don't want to thread that needle all the time, because it's such a difficult needle to thread that you will just come out the wrong side. Like, we know how bad judging can be. So even if you should have won very, very, very narrowly, you may well lose as well. And that's how you get people like Benson Henderson and Dan Henderson, where they won some split decisions they maybe shouldn't have, and they also lost some split decisions they maybe shouldn't have. That's the risk you take. But circling back, again, Dominic Cruz, with his defense, with his footwork, with his bravado, he was able to win over the judges. Another example is Henry Cejudo versus Mighty Mouse in the rematch, where Henry wins the title, where he wins by split decision. They rewatched that fight together, because now they're chummy and they train together and shit like that. And there's a video that Mighty Mouse put out where they sit down and they rewatch that fight, and they're sort of narrating. They're MST 3000ing it. And come round 5, they both agree it comes down to that round, that they're even 2-2 going into round 5. They agree upon that. And Henry is sort of explaining to Mighty Mouse what his thinking is as that round is going on and why he thinks it scored. And it had to do with a lot of like intangible shit that shouldn't actually count for that much in the judging criteria. A lot of just, you know, I'm like seizing the moment, I'm showing more aggression, I'm making it look like I'm having my way, stuff like that. But that's real. Like, that's a real part of the sport, because again, this isn't being done by AI, and there's no actual like purely quantifiable way in which these are scored. You know, there are things that are supposed to be given priority over others, but it's still subjective in how you assess that. And since that is subjective, and since it's 3 human beings, and since it's 3 human beings that are sitting cage side and are watching at home in front of a giant monitor with like the commentary on mute or something, they can be swayable. And so circling all the way back to the topic of this video, like, I don't hold it against Sean that he pulled that off. Not only because I think it is most likely he would have just fucked Zahabi up, had it kept going, had he not chosen to do the emote, but this is just part of the game, and it can backfire. I think I'm remembering this correctly, but didn't Jalen Turner have a fight, I believe, against Moicano? It might have been Dan Hooker, but I think it was Moicano, where he went for the walkaway KO and like showboated after dropping him and hurting him, but then didn't actually get the fight stopped, and then it kept going and he actually went on to lose. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering that correctly. So it's a risk. Like, it is a gambit. It's not just a freebie. You know what I mean? It's like a freebie if you get it for free, but you are taking a risk. It's like a bet. It's a gamble. So I'm fine with it. Like this is like, and it does lead to cool highlights. Like Mark Hunt's walkaway KOs are iconic. This was a great moment for Sean O'Malley's highlight reel. This is going to be on every fucking highlight reel that gets made of the guy. The UFC is going to use this in highlight reels. You know, it worked out for him. Like, I'm okay with this. Would it have worked for Ilya? Possibly. Ilya would have had to really make space and really have sold it, because Gaethje did try to grab him. And like Gaethje said, like when he was talking about this on Joe Rogan, he was saying how he just wasn't going to get finished, you know, that he would have held on to him, he would have pulled guard, whatever. And that's, you know, so I'm not sure Sean is right that this was quite so easy as he was making it sound, but I can definitely imagine a world where that would have worked, where Ilya would have just hurt him to the body, kind of pushed off. Gaethje would have like fallen to his knees, and Ilya could have like stood over him with his hands up and kind of looked at the ref and then turned away or something, and the ref would have intervened perhaps. Maybe not. Maybe Mark Goddard would be like, get your ass back here. I didn't call a fight. Like, you know, some refs might be put off by that. That's where, again, it's a gamble. You're relying on your ability to win over the ref and kind of manipulate them and get them to act the way you want them to act. But if they detect that, if they detect you trying to get away with one on them, they might do the opposite. Like, they might really give that guy the benefit of the doubt, and then as soon as you get hurt, they're like, all right, you're done. You know, that's the risk. And that might not be by the book, spirit of the letter, how they should be officiating, but they are, just like the judges, they are human beings too. So that's all part of the game. Like, shit like that, that is the meta. Like, that is playing, that's the game beyond the game. You know, the fight is the game within the game. So I'm fine with all this. I don't care. Like, this is all okay with me. I don't hold it against Sean at all that he did that. And again, that wasn't that bad of a stoppage, because, you know, he did hurt him. He did drop him like limp and dead for a second with that second punch. And yes, he started getting up and he fell over. So I'm fine with all this. So those are my thoughts on that. I thought it was an interesting topic, a topic I could dig into a bit here. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree, disagree, if you just hate all this, if you're like, yeah, this is bullshit, this is unsportsmanlike, it shouldn't be this way. Like, yes, people are subjective, but we should hold it to a higher standard and we should condemn this. And if those are your thoughts, let me know. If you see what I'm getting at, though, and you agree, let me know. You know, if you love Mark Hunt walkaway KOs, let me know. If you thought it was bullshit that Frank Mir didn't get that chance to try to submit him, let me know. But in any case, like and subscribe. Check out my second YouTube channel. It is called Michael Walsh Nerd Stuff. I talk about nerd stuff. I talk about video games, comic books, anime, sci-fi. I had a couple of really good videos I put out over the last 2 days talking about Superman, talking about how in the Justice League film, both the Joss Whedon version and the Zack Snyder cut, how they mishandled Superman, and how the James Gunn movie, for totally different reasons, also mishandled Superman. I will probably have a video today dropping about the Supergirl film, so if you're interested in any of that shit, go check it out. If not, you're only interested in MMA, no worries. Stay around here, I got you covered. Cranking out a ton of videos. I am your one-stop shop. So in any case, take care.